Alright, so we need to get this thing ready for our glue up. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a pair of dividers and set them for the width of my welt, because I want to know where to glue this welt. So I'm just going to mark a line on the inside of the sheath. Well, if I could stay on there. Just like that. I'm going to take our sheath and lay it on the back side. And I just want to mark a little line across the top like there. Now I know where to mark my welt line on the inside of the sheath. Next thing I'm going to want to do is prep the shiny side of our welt for glue. So you can use sandpaper, or I like to use a rasp. And we're just going to rough that up so that the glue has something to adhere to. Like I said, you could use sandpaper for this process. I just find the rasp is quicker. And that's it, we're ready for glue, other than we need to prep the sheath before we glue it. Now, when you're making leather work, you have to think about the edges that you want to finish or burnish. So if this sheath was together, we'd have a hard time burnishing this edge, and this edge. So holding this together, everything looks pretty even. I'm not going to cut or sand or any of that, make any of this even, because it looks pretty good, and we'll be able to burnish all the outside edges once it's together. So we will do our top. So you're going to need a, this is an edger. This is a CS Osborne number 2. If you guys ask, I don't really have a preference. I mean, this is what I have, so it's what I use. So all this does is takes that hard edge off of your leather and gives it a nice finish look. On this sheath, that's really all we need to do. Kind of trim that little hairy stuff off there. So now we need to burnish this edge. So let me get my burnishing material. Alright, so here's my burnishing tools. This is a burnishing dowel. This is a piece of glycerin saddle soap. Glycerin, it's just fibrin saddle soap. And this is just a piece of canvas, like you would buy at Jo-Ann Fabrics, that's been used to burnish. So in this jar I have water. It's a little frozen. And I just have a wool dauber to help me apply the water. So all I'm going to do is apply water to the edge I want to burnish. I'm going to give it a quick rub with my finger to help it soak in. You don't need a lot of water, but you want the water to kind of dissipate into the leather a little bit before you start burnishing. And then I'm going to just take the soap and give it a quick wipe. Grab my dowel, and light pressure. We're not really pushing on the leather, we're after speed. Friction. And you could probably see from the, hopefully you can see in the camera, that what's happening is the leather edge is getting a nice smooth shiny look to it. You could do this as long as you want. There's a lot of ways to burnish leather. Techniques. I just like to get it somewhat shiny and smooth. Helps protect the edge of the leather, keeps it from fraying, makes it a little stiffer. I have a power burnisher, but I wanted to do this by hand so that you guys can see it's really not that big of a deal to do by hand. You really don't need a power burnisher unless you're going to do hundreds of these at a time, or if you like to own all the tools, then be my guest and buy a power burnisher. Sometimes it helps to hold it flat against a piece, or hold it flat against your bench. Just kind of hit that edge. That's really all it needs to be right there. So we're done with those for now. Alright, so let's assemble our sheath. Actually, before you assemble your sheath, if you're going to tool your sheath, now's the time to tool it. If you're going to mark your sheath with your mark, now's the time to do that. I am going to put my logo on this sheath. So for that, I just have this Harbor Freight press. I'm just going to eyeball it here. I want it somewhere on the back side towards the bottom. It's not going to interfere with my stitches. Somewhat even. Just give that a quick press. Voila. You can have these made from many places. I don't remember where I got this one. Buckeye Engraving makes one. They make them you can pound with hammers. That's the one I would, if I was going to buy another one, I'd probably buy that one. Okay, glue up. So gluing leather's a little different than gluing everything else. We use contact cement. You can use just weldwood contact cement. You buy this at the hardware store, or you can use barge contact cement. Barge is more for leather work. I haven't really noticed the difference between any. I like to put it in these squeeze bottles from Harbor Freight and then use an acid brush to just smooth it out. You just want a thin layer on both sides. What I'm gluing on here is just a piece of cardboard that has collected glue from thousands of glue ups. And then I just set them on a cookie rack to dry. You want contact cement to dry to like a tacky state. So you don't want it to dry completely, but you want it to be drier than wet. Does that make sense? Drier than wet. just to where it's tacky. And it will you can let it dry completely and then glue over top of that. As a matter of fact, if you're having leather that you're having a hard time gluing, it won't glue. Put a layer of contact cement on, let it dry completely, and then put another layer on, and it should glue right up. So we'll just coat all of our pieces. Nice thin even layers all the way around. Don't worry, if you get the glue outside the lines, it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to matter once it dries. Just try to keep it neat. And that's it. We'll just sit here and watch glue dry, and then we'll do some assembly. Get close to our finishing touches. All right, so we got our leather glued and dry. What I mean by tacky is I'm touching it and it's just barely sticking to my finger, so should be good to go. So we're going to take the outside piece first. I'm going to put it right on the edge there and walk it down my sheath. Let's give it a little tap. Help seat it. This is a dead blow hammer from Harbor Freight that I glued a piece of suede on. Works perfect for applications like this. Won't leave marks in the leather. Put our bottom one on here. Tap. Now we'll flip this over and trim. Ouch. Don't cut our hand. We'll trim our welt to our sheath, and then we'll just stick our sheath together. Try to line up your corners if you can. It's not super critical. We're going to sand all this completely even. Alright, so now is the time to do a fit test, because you still have time here to pull this apart if needed. I don't believe that we need to pull that apart at all. I think that looks absolutely gorgeous. I love the detail. Comes right up to the eye there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Looks good. So on to the next step. Alright, back to our variable speed burnisher. I'm gonna go ahead and give this thing full send. You could do this by hand. If you have a 2x72, you can do it on a 2x72. Any kind of drum sander would work, but if you don't have any power tools, you can do this by hand. I'm not going to do it by hand because I don't have the time for that. I have in the past, but you know, I have the equipment now, so I'm going to use it. So what I wanted to do is make all these edges here dead flat. So we're going to temp that with this machine. Now I'm not going to touch any more of these edges because I did a really good job cutting them. But if you had any imperfection in these edges, now would be the time to clean those up. Actually, I am going to touch this front side up just a bit. It's got a couple little dips in it. Basically just looking for nice, smooth, even edges all the way around, so that when people look at your work, they appreciate it. time to make this thing pretty. This is just a horseshoe brush or horsehair brush or whatever you want to call it. I'm just getting some of the dust off so we can see what we got. So now we need to clean up all these edges. I don't know if the camera picks that up or not, but we got a pretty good burr. So we're just going to get our edger, work our way around the sheath.